When I saw the thumbnail for this video, I just kind of had to know what it was. And I mean, like, I'm kind of missing D&D because we haven't played it for so long. Scheduling and all that. Unfortunate. But regardless, make sure to go and support Dungeon Dad. The last video that I checked out from him about the false Hydra was awesome. I love that video so much, and I'm hoping for more greatness in this one. Link to the OG always at the top of the description. Forgot to add that. Let's see what this Odopi? Odopi? I don't know.
Hello and welcome to Monster of the Week, the only show on the internet which takes old school D&D monsters and converts them into shiny new monsters for your 5th edition
Okay, I think the false Hydra wasn't like an official D&D monster. It's more of a homebrew one. But is this one official?
D&D campaigns. And if you're not a DM and you're just here for juicy story tidbits, lore, and plot
That's what I'm here for.
I've got you covered there also. After last week's episode, I know I promised something much less horrific, and honestly, it'll be pretty nice to have a wholesome creature on the channel for once.
Awesome.
So this week, we're going to be taking a look at what the f is that?
Okay. Is it just a bunch of hands? Wait. This kind of resembles those hand shadowy thingies in Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I didn't play Tears of the Kingdom, but I remember seeing some gameplay footage of these things just chasing people around. So what does it do? Does it just grab you and look at you? It probably has some sort of psychic abilities or something.
What? No. Come on, man. Really? Really? Seriously? What the hell is that? What the f is that? Why is that
It's a Hydra of arms.
This week, we'll be taking a look at the Odopi. Because
Odopi.
apparently things are just always awful. As I said, what you're looking at here is the Odopi, which is an aberration which clocks in at a CR of 14. It first appeared in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5.
Okay, it's been a while. CR challenge rank, I think that's like the collective level of your party. Well, right, depending on the amount of people. And it's kind of a guideline to when you should have your party face off against such a monster. But also, this looks like it comes from an official monster manual, so I guess it's real.
As part of the Monster Manual 3 supplement that they put out, and this creature is huge. Literally, meaning that it stands 15 feet tall and weighs about 9 tons. This creature is literally a giant sphere of flesh just covered in a sea of arms which all end in yellow claws. At the center of this
Oh, I didn't realize that there was a body. Thought it was just a collection of arms attached to each other.
whole situation, there is a body which is described as being completely featureless aside from the fucking arms everywhere, and it does also have one cavernous mouth which opens up into a cavernous stomach. So
I don't want to see the mouth.
Oh, and did I forget to mention, in the palm of each of these many hands is a sickly yellow eyeball, because of course there is.
Yeah,
Who,
right.
What, how, when, why, and where this creature came from, both from an in-game and out-of-game design perspective, I truly have no earthly idea. But we're here now, so let's jump in hands fucking first, I guess. I don't know.
Someone with a hand fetish made this monster.
So let's jump in hands first, I guess. As always, there is a 5th edition conversion of this creature made by yours truly, which can be found in the description down below in the form of a Google document. So if you want to use this creature in your game because you think it sounds neat, A, you're a terrible person. B, all the information you need is right there. Today, we're going to go over just exactly what this creature is capable of in combat, what its abilities are, and how you would actually build a combat encounter using this monster. And then, of course, we're going to go over some plot hooks, some story ideas, and just some general inspiration for ways that you might use.
That's right. Dungeon Dad did this as well for the false Hydra, and I thought it was insanely cool, the ways that you could tie a monster into your story so naturally. And I think in the comments of that video, so many people shared their stories of how they implemented the false Hydra, or when they were playing a campaign where the DM had used a false Hydra. A lot of unique ways were used to introduce that monster, and it was just really a fun read. For any of you D&D veterans out there, if you guys have ever encountered this monster, let me know how it went.
Use this many-handed horror at your own D&D table. Also, if you find this at all helpful or entertaining, please leave a like, leave a comment, all that stuff helps tremendously.
Go and support Dungeon Dad.
Now let's get all hands on deck because it's time for As you might expect from a CR14 monster that's literally made of hands, this thing is pretty damn fast. It has a movement speed of 60 feet and a climb speed of 40 feet, so as a 15-foot creature, it is going to be just cruising all over the battlefield. Like a giant sentient tumbleweed of doom, the Odopi is going to be trying to trample everyone around it using its many hands and claws to great effect.
I wonder how it would move. Do you think it holds up its main body and then it has arms that it uses primarily as legs? Or maybe it just drags itself along the ground? Or, as he said, does it like roll around in a ball like a tumbleweed where the arms just kind of like propel it forward in a circular motion?
Primary means of attack is actually a claw attack, which causes a massive 5d8 plus 7 damage.
You could have never guessed.
But if it uses its claw attack to lash out, it only gets to make one attack as part of that action. That might sound pretty weak, but the Odopi is not that toothless when it comes to dealing damage. Thanks to a trait called Trample, the Odopi actually has an astronomical potential damage output. The way this trample ability works is that it allows the Odopi to move into another creature's square so long as that creature is large or smaller. Once it does this, the creature in the square it's trampling over has to make an acrobatics check DC 17. If they're able to pass that check,
17?
Nothing adverse happens to them. However, if they fail, they are knocked prone and they take 5d8 plus 7 damage. So yes, it only gets to make one attack roll, but if it uses its movement to maximum effect, its entire turn is one giant attack roll, baby. It is worth noting, however, that this ability can only affect a creature once per turn, meaning that the Odopi can't just roll over somebody and then roll back over them 100 times on its turn, because
thank goodness.
That would just be ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, your player characters would just die immediately. Just have him roll over and over again.
What the hell was that?
I'm not hurt. It's a miracle.
I think you're still on top of it. Back up.
Also, when it makes that claw attack using its action the way that most people normally make attacks, it might just seem like a little extra bonus damage on top of its rolling damage that it's already doing, but if that attack hits, it actually grapples the creature as well. And since the Odopi has the same number of hands as an entire kindergarten class, it is able to grapple up to 20 creatures at one time. 20
Why that specifically?
Creatures. And if you are grappled by this thing when it starts rolling over you, you automatically fail the saving throw that would otherwise negate the damage you would take. You know.
Bruh. Sounds so insane. We're extremely early in on our D&D campaign, and like, we're getting beat up by slimes. I can't even imagine trying to fight something like this. Although, I suppose at this DC level, you have some pretty crazy spells that could help you, or abilities or whatever. I'm sure during an encounter with this thing, it'll probably also grab up some NPCs surrounding the player too. Depending on where you're fighting it, obviously. But that could make for a very troublesome quest.
On account of the hundreds of hands grabbing you. What an uncool thing to have happen to a person. So it should be pretty obvious that the Odopi is a colossal threat at close range. But even when it comes to dealing with targets at a distance, the Odopi still has a few tricks up its hundreds of sleeves. For starters, it has a throw stones attack, which if it uses its multi-attack action, it can throw up to 4 stones in a single round. This is a pretty balanced set of attacks. That means if the party is trying to play keep away from this thing, as they fucking should, it has some recourse and it can do something other than just try to aimlessly grasp up at the creatures flying above it. It's also important to note, because this creature is huge, it's not throwing little pebbles. We're talking boulders the size of basketballs here. Each one of those 4 attacks is going to hit for 1d8 plus 6 damage, which isn't too shabby. Also, it has the
1d8 plus 6? It's a lot less than, what was it, the 5d8 that you were suffering when she got trampled? Like, yeah, just stay away from this thing, man. I forgot to consider the fact that there are spells later on that kind of allow you to fly, right? So having that would certainly help in fighting against such a monster.
The ability to teleport. What?
Wait, what?
Fuck. Why? That's right, folks. The giant mess of eyes, arms, claws, and sadness basically has the ability to cast Dimension Door. It can teleport anywhere within 500 feet of its current location
500?
using its action, disappearing instantly, and of course, reappearing in that other spot instantly. What's especially cool about this is because of the way movement and action economy works in 5th edition, it could conceivably teleport on top of some random adventurer and then continue to roll around at the speed of what the fuck to crush and claw and maim everyone else within its vicinity. It's gonna be killing everybody within sight, and on account of all the goddamn eyeballs.
Jesus. Just imagine seeing this yourself just in the distance, just like some strange looking creature just crawling around. Don't even know what it is, and then it just disappears and just drops right on top of you. How do you even survive in the D&D universe?
Balls on all of its goddamn hands, everybody's within sight all the time. But wait,
Yeah.
I cast invisibility, the sorcerer says. No, you don't, because it has true sight. And
Of
it can
course
still
it does.
see you. You're gonna be crushed and clawed to death.
I mean, considering how many eyes it obviously has to have like a extremely high perception, which I'm still waiting for the eyes to have some sort of magical ability where they can shoot lasers out of them. I don't know, that seems like something that would happen, but I could be wrong.
Then you're gonna fucking like it. Do you need a hand building an encounter for this monster? Don't worry, I've got your back. The Odopi truly does not give a singular shit about anyone or anything in its vicinity at any time. It's basically just a giant Katamari made by Satan, so roll with that. Pun very much intended. The second your players see this giant death ball of hands, eyes, and claws rolling towards them, they're going to have what I like to call a pivotal moment. They will look upon the 15-foot tall, 9-ton ball of arms, eyes, and claws, and they will either laugh at how ridiculous and uncanny this thing is, or they will be terrified by how ridiculous and uncanny this thing is. There is no in-between. If they should dare laugh at the Odopi, teach them the error of their ways. Have it teleport on top of the weakest party member, and then just start rolling around.
This is so evil, but like, yeah, you gotta respect the DF. You really gotta laugh at my monster? Yeah, we'll see who's laughing now.
It does best, crushing and killing the entire party, and very quickly you will hear those screams of laughter turn into death knells and screams of pain. But I am getting ahead of myself here. Now that we know what the Odopi is capable of, let's take a look at its fascinating history and lore and go over a few potential.
Awesome. I love this part.
These gnarled and twisted creatures are aberrations, so as you would expect, they do not come from the material plane. Their home is a far-off, distant world, and honestly, I feel like most of you probably already figured that out by now. They originate on the plane of Carceri, which is often affectionately referred to as the prison. Not just a prison, but the prison. It is a plane divided up into 6 unique districts, which are all dominated by a whole slew of terrifying, awful extraplanar entities. All of these creatures have one thing in common, however, though, which is that they have been bound to the plane of Carceri because some god or demigod or ultra-powerful being out in the multiverse has deemed them too dangerous to be allowed to run loose.
Well, whoever that was, they were probably a very smart person. Because yes, this should not be running around. Nobody would be able to survive.
I could honestly go off about this place because it is truly a fascinating part of the D&D multiverse, but we'd be here all day and this video is going to be long enough as it is already, so perhaps another time. All you really need to know is that it's a super prison and you never want to meet anything that lives there. Speaking of things that live there, the Odopi is one of them. Let me just make this extremely clear. The Odopi is from a place that gods use as a cosmic prison. It is the proverbial Alcatraz of the D&D world, and the Odopis are born there. I guess we should be grateful because, I mean, they're already in super prisons, so that's like the best place for them to be. However, due to their highly aberrant nature and the fact that there doesn't really seem to be an upper limit on how long their natural lives can go on for, occasionally one or two of them slip through a little planar rift and end up on the material plane.
Gotcha. I wonder how they came to be. Was it like the collection of chaos energy formed within that realm from all of those beings of mass destruction being locked together in the same prison just formed into whatever this thing is. And why hands? Like, what kind of evolution path do you take to have a body with just hands protruding from it? If you don't have any feet, what are you going to sell on your OnlyFans? I don't get it.
In such an instance, there are many different ways that you could handle this monster. Using an Odopi as a sort of force of nature is a very attractive option to me. One of these things getting loose on the material plane and just rolling around, tearing shit up and destroying everything in its path can make for a pretty interesting set piece.
It's basically a natural disaster. Something's going wrong in the distant corner of the kingdom. Reports are unclear exactly as to what it is. Go out there and stop it. Maybe? I don't know. That seems a little too shallow, though. Maybe we could spice it up a little more.
If your players choose to engage with it and try to put a stop to its rampage, that could be a really fun one-off encounter that doesn't necessarily have to derail your entire campaign, or even mean that you have to introduce the Odopi as like a primary part of what's going on in this story. It can just be there and your players can either say, that sucks, or they can say, we have to do something about this. I do like the idea of someone coming to the party and being like, hey, a villager from one of the nearby towns spotted some horror on the horizon, and it looks like it's coming closer to us. Maybe you guys want to do something about that?
Yeah,
maybe?
right.
And then your players get to feel like heroes, or they get to watch the flames of the city rise as they say, fuck that, and choose not to engage. Either way, pretty fun story moment. As far as how these things actually come into being, we don't really have much information about the way that they reproduce, which honestly is probably for the best, but it does leave a bit
Oh no. Oh. All these images in my head. Oh, it's so bad. Guys, imagine the Odopis using all of their hands to hold the hands of another Odopi. That is so incredibly lewd. Just imagining that, all of that hand holding makes me feel so dirty.
Bit of a hole in their ecology, which you get to fill. Oh my god. I didn't even write that down.
Rewrite the script.
Don't improv. This is a note for me later. Don't ever improv. Stick to the script. I personally imagine something like this probably tends to lay eggs. I don't know why, but when I look at that, I think, yeah, you probably lay eggs. You probably lay hella eggs.
I mean, do you? Do you just come from, like, energy, bad juju, just form into this? That's what I think. I would rather not imagine it laying an egg.
If that's true and you choose to have them reproduce asexually, it means one of these things showing up on a plane other than their prison home is potential for an infestation, which is always pretty compelling. You know, you have certain wizards and druids or whoever that want to study these things, and other people screaming, no, we have to destroy them and burn away the nests, and others who are like, hey guys, maybe let's just focus on surviving first, and then we can deal with the ramifications both morally and scientifically of what we want to do with these creatures. You could also go the amoeba route and have it be so that once these creatures reach a certain critical mass, they just split off into two separate entities. I kind of like that too, because if one of these things, which happens to be particularly large, is rampaging somewhere, it would be a pretty dynamic and dramatic moment in the middle of a combat for it to split in half and uh-oh, now there are two of them.
I agree. That would be like an oh shit moment. It can split apart into multiple. Like, one of them was bad enough. You gotta get rid of this thing, man.
I also feel like it goes without saying that if you are running an adventure which takes place on the prison plane of Carceri, you're crazy if you don't throw one of these guys at your party at some point. Even if the party doesn't engage in combat with it, just by revealing a creature like this to the party, it sends a very strong message that the things which live here are alien, bizarre, and horrific beyond what you can comprehend.
Yeah, honestly, just seeing it in the distance, just walking by and describing it to the party, it really sets the tone. That's for sure. But, like, what kind of campaign ends up in Carceri? I didn't know about this place before. I think this delves into the multiverse stuff that I'm not very familiar with just yet. But this seems like a really bad place to be. It's a very grim dark, and it's probably one of those campaigns where you're not going to survive to see the end of it. Although I suppose D&D is much more lighthearted in nature than some other RPGs. But still, I just can't imagine a situation where you're here. Unless you fell through like a dimensional pocket hole and ended up in the back rooms and now you're here or something like that. Or you were condemned by God, falsely condemned and thrown in here. If you're watching this and you've ended up in this plane, let me know how. Also, let me know if you're okay.
And you haven't seen anything in the rest of the multiverse like what is in Carceri. Another really fun detail about the Odopi is that they actually have their own language. Savvy viewers who already took a look at the stat block likely have already noticed it says they speak Odopian. I say speak with heavy
Odopian?
air quotes there because their language is actually comprised of a series of gurgling noises and hand claps. If you don't think that's the dopest
Oh my god. That would be so scary to just hear that in the distance. Or maybe even at night, all you hear is just gurgling noises and hand clapping.
shit ever, I do not know what to tell you. I imagine watching two of these things communicate would be extremely surreal, alien, and probably
be
a
fascinating.
bit unsettling.
And then you would die. Okay, dude, I'm too far gone. I am too far gone. Oh, those clapping noises made me think of something else. Especially hearing that at night. I know exactly what I would say if Serbi ever put one of these monsters in their campaign. I can't take it seriously.
Man, 5th edition just does not have this kind of monster ecology, so whenever I see these little details peppered in through a lot of these older creatures...
Really? That's kind of sad. Just honestly, judging from all the thumbnails on Dungeon Dad's channel, there's some pretty interesting looking stuff. I wonder why they got removed. Were they not, like, a part of the lore or the setting, or were they just unbalanced? Have we just not gotten around to them yet? Or maybe we're just trying to keep things fresh by adding in new stuff and doing away with some of the older concepts.
creature entries, I live for it, man. It's so good. And yet another personality quirk mentioned in the ecology entry for this monster is that they are fiercely independent. However, on occasion, even more powerful entities will try to force an Odopi into servitude, hoping to wield their destructive power for their own ends. Something to note here is that the Odopi has an intelligence score of 6, which means they're pretty simple-minded, but they are definitely sentient.
They do
Anyone
have
who's played
intelligence,
D&D
yeah.
with a table of murder hobos knows exactly what I'm talking about. Their massive wisdom score, however, of 22 definitely suggests to me that they are more driven by primal emotion and instinct, but they can be communicated with. In the source book, it mentions that they are often forced into servitude through, and I quote, violence or threats of violence. That means the Odopi
So
is
it
at least smart
understands
enough to
violence.
understand the concept of a threat. And it
Yeah.
also means that they have a strong self-preservation instinct. Otherwise, they would just fight to the death as soon as a threat presented themselves. To me, that also means they can be reasoned with. Maybe the big bad villain of your campaign is forcing some Odopis to do their dirty work. The party might be able to stop the Odopi threat by just going above them and taking out the true villain, this individual who holds some type of leverage over the Odopi. Also, if they're able to convince the Odopi that they're stronger than the thing threatening it, the Odopi might join their side and help them take down the villain.
Holy shit. I did not think of that. How would that work? That would be really interesting, though. Be such a cool development. The thing that had been rampaging across the land the entire time, you can now actually convince and use it to defeat the big bad.
What happens after the fact, that's up to you. Now,
Well, yeah.
traditionally,
Yeah, there's
Odopis
that.
are chaotic evil, as many aberrations tend to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to throw that alignment in the garbage, you could give them a bit of a more neutral bend. You could make them in their mere existence kind of destructive, like that's just what they're built to do, but they don't necessarily enjoy killing others. It's just as kind of a byproduct of all the chaos that's around them. If anything, I would say that's chaotic neutral. It would still likely be considered evil by, you know, the clerics and paladins among us,
Oh,
but
yeah.
fuck those guys. Maybe on its home.
I just find the D&D alignment system to be quite interesting. Not really sure if I completely understand it, but it does cover a wide array of, I guess, attitudes towards life in general. It leaves room for some, I guess, different perspectives on certain matters or certain creatures or the fate of a creature that you were maybe sent to slay, but it's also just kind of acting within its own nature. Just more added depth to your RPG. Always a good thing. Unless if it goes a little too far.
Plane of Pandemonium or Carceria or wherever it happens to be from in your world, this amount of destruction is just kind of normal. That's just what its prime, regular, basic state
that is. Life
so perhaps on the
for the
material
Odopi.
plane, it's merely destroying towns and settlements and targets that it is being forced to destroy. If you choose to go this route, as I kind of touched on earlier, you could have the appearance of a group of Odopi be a very political issue. Some folks might be less inclined to just kill and destroy them if they know that they're sentient and not inherently evil. Treating it
There. That's what I was talking about. It creates this morally gray area that a lot of your party members could argue back and forth about as to what exactly you would do in that situation. There isn't really any right or wrong. There is only a decision made and the results of that decision. I do enjoy it when really any video game does that, and it does it well. That being said, it is still fun to have the evil character be evil. There is still a place for that. Not every single villain has to have some sort of tragic backstory that makes you want to care about them and think that they're in the right. I love hating Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and that is fine. That is great. He is one of the greatest villains of all time in my books, because he's just evil and extremely petty. You'll love to hate him.
them as kind of this invasive species which is having a negative effect on the current environment, but not one that is malicious per se, can be a really interesting plot thread for a D&D game. You could make a pretty compelling argument for their destruction, for leaving them be, and also for relocating them back to wherever they're actually supposed to be. And maybe it falls on your party to ultimately find the solution. In any case, these monsters are horrific and disgusting, but I truly love them. I think that they're actually really cool. Anything that evokes the type of visceral reaction that looking at this creature evoked in me the first time I saw it is definitely a monster worth, at the very least, giving a look to. If you do want to use this monster in your game, of course, if you're playing 3rd edition, it's in the Monster Manual 3. If you are playing 5th edition, I have made a stat block conversion, which you can find linked in the description below, that contains everything you need to successfully run this creature. And for my lovely patrons, you will of course find the 5th edition Monster Manual style stat block linked on the Patreon page, which has the artwork and the stat block and all the lore and everything laid out in that 5th edition fashion, so you can stick that in your DM folder and have it ready. Because at the end of the day, this is one of those monsters that describing it to your players will get you pretty far, but being able to say, hey, art, look at this fucking insane bullshit is going to get you miles further.
Yeah,
But if you do want to
a picture says 1,000 words and all that.
support me and support the channel financially, I greatly would appreciate it if you would check out the Patreon. Most importantly though, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're at this point in the video, I mean, you did it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. The community has been growing so much in the past couple months, so I don't know, man. It means a lot. I'm really happy you guys are here and digging what I'm doing. At the end of the day, just, I guess, thanks for watching, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. Until next week, I'll see you then.
Cool beans. Yeah, it's really cool. There's just so many things left to explore. So many plot threads that you could use to tie it all together.